There was a time when pulling up in a Cadillac said something before you ever stepped out of the car. It said you had arrived. Maybe you were a doctor, a funeral home owner, a preacher, a businessman, an entertainer. Or maybe you were somebody who had worked 30 years, saved your money, raised your family, and finally bought the car you'd always wanted. But somewhere along the way, Cadillac became more than just another luxury automobile in Black America. It became a symbol of success, of dignity, of freedom, and sometimes simply proof that after being told where you couldn't go, what you couldn't have, and who you were supposed to be, you could still arrive in style. Welcome to Black Soul Collective, where we preserve the stories, traditions, wisdom, and life lessons that continue to shape our community, one meaningful conversation at a time. To understand the Cadillac story, we first have to understand what the automobile itself meant to Black Americans. During the era of segregation, travel wasn't always simple. Black passengers faced discrimination on buses and trains. Black motorists could be refused food, lodging, gasoline, and other services while traveling across the country. That danger eventually helped inspire Victor Hugo Green to publish the Negro Motorist Green Book, which directed Black travelers toward businesses where they could safely eat, sleep, and receive service. So owning an automobile represented something important: freedom. Inside your own car, you had a measure of control. You decided when to leave, where to stop, who sat beside you, and where you were going next. Then imagine that automobile being a Cadillac. For much of the 20th century, Cadillac represented the upper end of American automobile ownership. Big, comfortable, distinctive, and unmistakably prestigious. For Black professionals and business owners who had achieved success despite segregation and discrimination, a Cadillac could become a visible declaration: I made it. That symbolism could be seen in Black businesses too. Black-owned funeral homes became important institutions in communities across America, and elegant automobiles were part of the dignity and professionalism they presented to families. Cadillacs became particularly recognizable in funeral processions and professional fleets. The car also appeared in another world that would have enormous influence on Black culture: entertainment. Musicians spent their lives traveling from city to city. Performers understood presentation, and few automobiles communicated arrival quite like a Cadillac. Chuck Berry certainly understood that. Cadillacs appeared repeatedly in the world he sang about: cars, freedom, youth, and movement. Years later, Berry's own red 1973 Cadillac Eldorado would become part of the collection of the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. And as generations changed, Cadillac kept showing up in blues, in rhythm and blues, in soul, eventually in hip-hop. And outside the music, it was sitting in driveways, church parking lots, funeral home garages, and cruising down neighborhood streets. For some people, the Cadillac represented wealth. For others, it represented something quieter: reward. You worked, you saved, you sacrificed, and eventually you bought yourself something that said all those years had meant something. That's why older generations sometimes spoke about certain purchases differently. A luxury car wasn't always about showing off. Sometimes it was about finally being able to enjoy something previous generations had been denied the opportunity to own. And there's an important distinction here. Cadillac did not belong exclusively to Black America. It was an American luxury brand purchased by people from many backgrounds. But Black Americans gave the Cadillac meanings rooted in our own experiences. Mobility in a country that once restricted Black movement. Luxury in a society that often denied Black people access. Visibility in a culture that frequently overlooked Black achievement. And pride in communities where success was worth celebrating. By the late 20th century, the symbolism evolved again. Custom Cadillacs appeared in different regional car cultures. Long bodies, polished chrome, elaborate interiors, distinctive wheels, and personalized paint turned the automobile into another form of expression. Hip-hop carried that imagery into another generation. The Cadillac wasn't simply transportation anymore. It could become personality. Style, memory, music, and history rolling on four wheels. Today, luxury looks different. Younger generations have dozens of brands that can communicate success. But mention an old Cadillac to somebody from an earlier generation and watch what happens. They may remember an Eldorado, a Coupe de Ville, a Fleetwood. Maybe a grandfather who washed his Cadillac every Saturday morning. Maybe the funeral director whose cars were always spotless. Maybe the church parking lot on Sunday. Or maybe that one person everybody in the neighborhood knew had finally bought themselves a Cadillac. And that is why this history matters, because sometimes an ordinary object carries an extraordinary amount of memory. The Cadillac wasn't responsible for Black success. It didn't create Black dignity. And owning one certainly wasn't the only measure of having made it. But for generations of Black Americans, that automobile became one highly visible way of saying, I worked for this, I earned this, and I'm going to enjoy it. So the next time an old Cadillac slowly rolls past you, don't just look at the chrome. There might be a whole lot of history riding inside. If you enjoy discovering the stories behind the things that became part of Black American life and culture, subscribe and join us here at Black Soul Collective. Because sometimes, the things we've seen our whole lives have stories we've never been told, and we're going to keep finding them, one story at a time.